Federal election.
Federal election.
An election campaign.
Labor Party.
The election campaign. The coalition.
Peter Dutton.
Anthony Albanese.
Labor, Teals and the Greens.
They burnt in hell. That's what Easter is about. 40%.
Hey, it's Matt from Big Press here. So, the federal election's been called here in Australia. On May 3rd, we'll go and cast our votes. I was having a conversation about this with someone close to me recently, and they had watched Abby Chatfield's interview with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. This person had come away from that interview with the opinion that we shouldn't be so critical of the Labor government, otherwise we'll end up with Peter Dutton as our next Prime Minister. They might have gotten that impression from this.
I've seen some people in comments, I'm in the comments all the time, and I've seen people in comments say, I'm going to put Labor last, essentially to punish them for what they've done. Greens first, Labor last, or put even the National Party,
Well, if they do that, they'll end up with Peter Dutton as Prime Minister.
Now, the truth of that statement really depends on what electorate you're in, and in any other election, it might be far more accurate, but this is not any other election. This year is going to be a special election because independents will have more sway than maybe ever. That mindset is pretty American. The idea that if you're criticizing one party, then you are drawing more votes for the other party. They have that mindset in America because they use a system called first past the post. There's a lot of other countries around the world that use this system, and the most important thing for Australians to know about it is that we don't have it. We have a system called preferential voting. The idea with preferential voting is that you number the candidates in order of preference. Number 1 is who you would most like to represent your electorate, and number, whatever it be, 6, 7, 8, is the one that you least like to represent your electorate. Say you're an electorate with 7 candidates. You preference them 1 to 7. Maybe you're a huge fan of the Liberal Party. You preference the Liberal candidate number 1. For your number 2 preference, maybe you're also a really big fan of the Greens Party. They exist. So you put the Greens candidate number 2. Then once you've numbered all the rest of your candidates, you cast your vote. When the votes are counted up, if one candidate gets over 50% in the first count, then that's it. That candidate is in. If no candidates get a majority of the votes in the first round of counting, then it goes to a second round. In that second round, the candidate that has the least amount of votes is knocked out, and whoever preferenced that candidate as their number 1, their vote goes to their number 2 candidate. So, say your Liberal candidate gets knocked out in the first round. Shame. Your vote will then go to your number 2 candidate, Greens. If after the second round of voting still no candidates have 50% of the vote, then they do the same thing again. Knock out the lowest candidate, the votes will go to second or third preferences. The idea is that no candidate can get into Parliament without a majority of the vote, and that majority is based on how you've preferenced the candidates. Your Senate ballot's a little bit different. You can vote what's called above the line, which is just ticking a box for a single party, and your preferences will be spread as that party pleases. Or you can vote below the line, which is preferencing all of the fucking people in the Senate. Who knows how many people there are. One of the great benefits of our preferential voting system is that you don't have to go into the polling booth thinking only about who you don't want. You get to preference who you do want, and that means something. Now, another part of this whole game is what's called preference deals. So these are unofficial deals that are made between parties that essentially manifest in the form of how to vote cards. If you've voted before, you've probably seen when you go to the polling place, there's a bunch of volunteers standing who represent different parties. They will give you a card that says how to vote. But don't get it twisted, these how to vote cards are not trying to be helpful. These are tutorials in how to vote in the way that a party wants you to vote. Now, how to vote cards are somewhat controversial and with good reason. One of the benefits of a preferential voting system is that you get to choose every single one of your preferences yourself. You get to tailor them to exactly your personal politics. How to vote cards are letting a party decide those politics for you. But reassuringly, Australians have been using how to vote cards less and less. Since the 1960s, users of how to vote cards has been steadily decreasing, with the 2019 election seeing just 29% of Australian voters using these cards. Now, the thing we want to try and communicate to you with this video is that this election, more so than other elections, it is important to read up on your independent candidates. Over the past few decades, there's been a shift away from the two major parties in Australian federal elections. Take the last election, for example. The vote for the two major parties fell to historic lows in the 2022 election. The key beneficiaries of this seismic shift in voting behaviour were the Greens and independent candidates. Last election saw a huge wave of support for a group of independents known as the Teal candidates, who managed to knock out Liberal candidates from major seats around the country. The reason this is important is that these independent candidates, in theory, reflect their electorates much more closely than candidates from major parties, who will often vote along party lines rather than what might actually be best for their electorate. Take Bob Catter, for example.
As
far as I'm concerned.
But I ain't spending any time on it.
Seriously, say what you will about the man. He does a good job of representing his electorate.
But don't just take it from me. Here's what independent candidate and currently sitting member for the seat of Kooyong, Dr. Monique Ryan, had to say on the topic.
Well, I can speak on behalf of my community. I don't get told what to do by a party. I can pick up issues that matter to my community and I continue to fight for them. I can continue to fight for them, as long as my community wants me to, and I don't have to abide by party policies. I don't have to answer to factions or to lobby groups. I can operate independently. It's a position of great responsibility, but I think it's a position of significant power just because of that independence.
You get to answer questions with I think instead of my party thinks, right?
Exactly. I get to say what I think and what I believe and what my community tells me it thinks and believes. And I think it must be hard sometimes for people who are in the parties. I would find it difficult and frustrating. It's quite freeing in a way to be able to speak to your values and those of your community as you want, which people in a party just simply can't do. There are some very strong independent candidates across the country. I don't know them, but from outside their campaigns, some of them look pretty impressive, and it'll be really interesting to see if the current set of independents is re-elected and whether more independents are re-elected this time round. Last time there was 2022 continued a trend from a number of, I'm not sure exactly how many, but there's several preceding elections where the primary vote to the major parties dropped significantly, and 2022 is the highest vote for independents and small parties ever. I haven't seen any really compelling reason for people to go back to the major parties since 2022, but I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be very interesting.
It may feel right now like the two major parties in Australia have an all-time low level of support, but this has actually been going on for the last few decades. Quote, in 1967, 72% of voters said they always voted for the same party. In 2022, this dropped to a record low of 37%. This is not just among voters, too. This is among politicians. Take Fatima Payman, for example, a West Australian senator who was part of the Labor Party, but based on Labor's stance on the Israel-Gaza conflict, left the Labor Party and has now started her own independent party. So this is all to say that there might be a candidate out there that reflects your views far more accurately than one of the major party candidates. Part of the excitement of this election compared to other elections is that independents seem to have more sway than ever and are being taken seriously in Parliament. They are a threat to the major parties, and this is good for democracy. This is making Australia more democratic. This has been Big Press. Thank you for watching. Stay frosty.
All right, you going to show me around?
Yeah, yep.